She asked me in the paint aisle on a Wednesday afternoon, holding a color swatch she wasn't even looking at. "Dean, can you be the father of my baby, just for one day?" I'd known Claire Bennett about 4 months. Well enough to know she took her coffee black with 1 sugar. Not well enough for that. I set down the box in my hands. "Only if you tell me why." 3 years before that, a doctor sat me down in a cold little room and told me I was never going to be a father at all. My wife left 11 months later, and now, a woman I barely knew was standing in my paint aisle asking me to be one for a day. Here's the thing, she gave me 3 answers over the next year. Each one was truer than the last, and the realest one didn't come from her at all. It came from a 6-year-old sitting on a stool behind my register. Let me back up. My name's Dean Whitaker. I'm 34. I own Whitaker Hardware on Main Street, in a town of 4,000 people in central Ohio, the kind of place where the high school football scores get printed on the marquee outside the bank. My dad opened the store in 1986. I grew up in it. I know where every screw in that building lives. Dad died when I was 26 and left me the whole thing. He wasn't a talker. He said maybe 40 words to me on any given day. But he said one thing to me my whole life, over and over, and I didn't understand it until this story happened. A kid would come in with a broken bike. Dad would stop whatever he was doing, every time. And I'd get irritated, because we had a business to run. And one day I said something about it. He looked at me and said, "Dean, anybody can sell a man a hammer. Any fool with a cash register can do that." He nodded at the door. "The job is being here. Same place, same hours. Every day, so when somebody needs somebody, they know exactly where to find one." He went back to his shelving. "Showing up is the whole trade, son. Everything else is just inventory. Showing up is the whole trade." Okay, now the part I don't tell people. I got married at 28. Her name was Rachel. We wanted kids immediately. Both of us, badly. We tried for 2 years and nothing happened. So we got tested. It was me. The numbers weren't there. It wasn't going to happen on its own. And we tried the other roads, and none of them took. And somewhere in year 3, I watched my wife look at me across a kitchen table with an expression I'll never forget. It wasn't cruelty. That's what made it so bad. It was grief. She was grieving a kid that didn't exist. And I was the reason. She left 11 months later, married a guy from Columbus inside 2 years. They've got 3. I don't hate her for it. I want to be clear about that. She wanted to be a mother more than she wanted to be my wife, and I've never once thought that made her a villain. It just made her honest. But something in me shut off after that. I stopped dating, stopped trying. I opened the store at 7 and closed it at 6, and did that 400 times a year, and I told myself that was a life. A man alone in a building full of things other people needed. 34 years old, never going to be anybody's dad. Everybody in town knew it, because everybody in a town like that knows everything. That was me when the Bennetts walked in. Before I tell you what happened Friday, if you believe the family you're supposed to have doesn't always come the way you planned it, do me a favor and tap subscribe, because this channel is full of stories exactly like this one, and I'd hate for you to miss the next one. All right, back to the store. Charlie Bennett was 6. He started showing up in September. His mom worked at the insurance office 2 doors down, and school let out at 3:15, and the office didn't close till 5, and there's a gap in there that every working single mother in America knows about. So Charlie sat in my store. First day, he stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed. Kid was small for 6. Cowlick. Sneakers with a hole starting at the toe. I said, "You lost?" He said, "My mom said wait here." I said, "All right." He stood there for 20 minutes. Wouldn't sit. Wouldn't touch anything. So the next day I dragged the old stool out from the back, my dad's stool, the one he sat on for 30 years, and I put it behind the register and I said, "That's yours. kid looked at that stool like I'd handed him a car. Second week, I had a coffee can full of mixed screws somebody dumped out. Total mess. I set it in front of him with 3 jars and said, "Wood screws, sheet metal, drywall. Can you sort?" He said, "I don't know how." I said, "Neither did I." Somebody showed me. I showed him. Took 10 minutes. That kid sorted screws every afternoon for 2 hours. Dead serious. Tongue out the side of his mouth, like it was open heart surgery. Third week, I made him a name badge. We've got a machine in back. It's for the store. We all wear them. I punched one out that said Charlie, assistant manager, and clipped it on his shirt. I want you to understand what that kid's face did. Nobody had ever given him a title before. He wore that badge to school every single day for a year. He slept in it once. Claire told me later. That's how it went for 4 months. School bus, my store, the stool, the screws, the badge. He'd tell me about his day. I'd hand him things. Dad's whole trade. I was just there. Same place, same hours. I never once thought of it as anything. I liked the kid, that was all. And his mother, Claire. She'd come get him at 5, apologizing every time, every single day. "Dean, I'm so sorry. He's got to be in your way." "He's not. I'll figure something else out." "Claire, he's the only employee I've got who doesn't steal." That got me a laugh. First time I ever heard it. I thought about that laugh more than I should have, driving home to my empty house. Claire Bennett was 32. Dark hair, always up in a clip, always moving. She had that thing single mothers get where they're running a war and smiling through it. She'd been alone with Charlie since he was 2. I never asked about the father. That's not my business and it's not my way. 4 months of that, then the paint aisle. She came in on a Wednesday around 4, and Charlie was on the stool, and she didn't go to him. She came down the paint aisle to me instead, and she grabbed a swatch off the rack and just held it, and I could see her hands were shaking. And she said it. "Only if you tell me why," I said. She let out a breath. Charlie's school, Friday morning. They do a thing called donuts with Dad. And, man, I knew exactly what that was. If you didn't grow up with it, it's a real thing. American elementary schools do it. Dads come in at 7:30 in the morning, sit at the little tables in the little chairs, eat a donut with their kid, and go to work. I was that kid once. I want you to know that. My dad had a store to open at 7, and Donuts with Dad was at 7:30, and he came anyway. Both years. Closed the store, lost the morning, sat in a chair built for a first grader, and ate a donut with me. Showing up is the whole trade. "He's the only one," Claire said. Her voice went to nothing. 22 kids in that class. Every single one of them has somebody. A dad, a grandpa, an uncle, a stepdad, somebody. And Charlie's got nobody, and he's got to sit there, and I can't. She stopped, pressed the swatch to her mouth. "I've got no father. I've got no brother. My dad's gone. There's no man in that boy's life except..." She stopped again. "Except me," I said. She nodded. And that was answer number 1. I said yes. Obviously, I said yes. But I want to tell you what it felt like, because you can't see it from outside. I'm a man who was told he'd never be a father. That's a sentence you carry. It sits on you at 3 in the morning. And a woman just walked down my paint aisle and asked me to be one for a morning. You know what I felt? Not sad. Not weird about it. Grateful. Like somebody handed me a glass of water, and I hadn't known I was thirsty for 3 years. "Friday at 7:30, I said. "I'll close the store." "Dean, you can't close the store." "Claire," I said. "My dad closed the store." Friday morning, I put on a clean shirt, and I sat in a chair built for a 6-year-old with my knees around my ears, and I ate a chocolate donut off a paper napkin. And here's where the second answer showed up. Because it hit me about 4 minutes in that something was wrong. The other kids knew me. Not knew me, they knew about me. Kid at the next table looks at me and goes, "Are you Charlie's dad from the hardware store?" I said, "I'm Dean." He says, "Charlie says you have a machine that makes name tags." And another kid goes, "Charlie says you let him use the box cutter," which I did not. Correction issued. But then a little girl says, "Charlie said his dad was gonna come. He said it a bunch." Everybody said he was lying. And I looked over at Charlie Bennett, 6 years old, name badge on his shirt, sitting up so straight his back wasn't touching the chair, face absolutely glowing, owning that room, and I got it. That kid had been talking about me for months, not making up a dad, not inventing some fake astronaut father like kids do. He'd been describing me. The store, the stool, the screws, the badge, every detail true, every single one. He'd just been using the wrong word for it. I got through that hour. I don't remember much of it. Then I walked out to the parking lot and I sat in my truck and I put both hands on the wheel and I cried harder than I did at my own father's funeral. Claire was waiting by her car. She'd seen my face. "You knew," I said. She started crying too. Right there, in an elementary school parking lot at 8:15 in the morning. "His teacher called me in October," she said. She was worried. She said Charlie kept telling the class about his dad, and she knew. She knew there wasn't one. She thought he was, I don't know, dissociating, making things up. Claire wiped her face with her sleeve. So I sat him down. I asked him, and he told me all about his dad. "And it was you, Dean. Every word out of his mouth was you." She was shaking. "I've known since October. I let it happen anyway, because I couldn't stand to take it away from him, and I couldn't figure out how to tell you, and I've been so ashamed." Second answer. She hadn't picked me because I was the only man available. She picked me because a 6-year-old already had. Now, you want to know what makes a small town a small town? Word travels. Charlie's actual father found out about donuts with Dad by Sunday. His name was Trent. He lived 2 towns over, 35 minutes, which I want you to hold on to. 35 minutes. He'd left when Charlie was 2. He had a new wife and a new baby, and he had never once, in 4 years, driven those 35 minutes. He drove them on Monday, walked into my store at 4 in the afternoon like he owned it. Big guy. Sunglasses on his head indoors, which tells you most of what you need. Charlie was on the stool. I saw the kid's whole body go small. 6 years old, and he knew to make himself small. I said, "Charlie, go in the back and count the paint stirrers for me." Kid went. Good kid. And Trent Bennett looked around my store and smiled and said, "So you're the guy." I said, "I'm Dean." He said, "You're playing house with my son." And then he did the thing that people like that always do. He reached for the truth, and he pulled out every part that made it true, and he held up what was left. You know what this looks like? He was loud on purpose. 2 customers in the aisle, 34-year-old guy, no wife, no kids of his own, can't have kids of his own. Everybody in this town knows it, Dean, hanging around some little boy in the back of his store every day after school, making him a little badge, giving him a little job. He let that sit. And now you're sitting in his school, pretending to be his father, in front of his class. He leaned on my counter. He's mine. You don't get to just take a kid because you couldn't make one. Every word of that was technically true. I don't have kids. I can't. A boy does sit in my store. I did sit in that school. And every word had been stripped of the only things that made it the truth. That his mother works 2 doors down. That there's a gap between 3:15 and 5 o'clock. That the boy needed somewhere to be. That nobody else was there. That this man had 35 minutes of road and 4 years and never drove it once. My hands were shaking. I'm not going to pretend they weren't, but I don't raise my voice. I never have. That's not a virtue. It's just how I'm built. So I said it quiet. "Trent, how far is it from your house to here?" He blinked. "What?" "It's 35 minutes. I looked it up Saturday." I put my hands flat on the counter. You've had 4 years and 35 minutes of road. You didn't drive it for his birthday. You didn't drive it when he had pneumonia last winter, and his mom slept in a hospital chair for 3 nights. You've never driven it once. The store was dead quiet. You drove it today, I said. 12 hours after you heard some hardware store guy ate a donut with him. I let that sit. You're not here for Charlie. You've never been here for Charlie. You're here because somebody else was, and you can't stand what that says about you. I looked at him. You don't want your son. You want to not be the guy who left him. And I'm sorry, but I can't help you with that. Nobody can. Only 35 minutes of road can, and you've had it the whole time. He didn't have anything. Guys like that never do, when you say the true thing quietly instead of shouting the false one. He said some stuff about lawyers. He never called one. He got in his truck and he drove his 35 minutes, and he has never once come back. Which, I want to be honest, is its own kind of tragedy, and I take zero pleasure in it. But here's what he did do before he left. He put a crack in Claire. She came apart that night. On my porch, 11 o'clock, whole thing. He's right, she said. That's what makes it unbearable, Dean. He's right. People are talking. I've let my son build an entire father out of a man who's just being nice to a kid in his store. What happens when this ends? What happens when you meet somebody? Or you get tired of us? Or you just realize we're not yours? She was crying. He's 6. He can't lose a dad twice. I did this. I let it happen because it was easier than telling him the truth. And now I've set my kid up to get destroyed. And it's my fault. And I want you to understand. I could have said a lot of things there. Big things. Romantic things. I said the only true thing I had. Claire. My dad ran that store for 30 years. I sat down on the step next to her. He wasn't a talker. He wasn't affectionate. He was a hard man, honestly, but he opened that door at 7 every morning for 30 years, and every kid in this town knew that if they needed somebody, there was a man behind that counter. Same place, same hours. I looked at her. He told me the whole job was showing up, and I thought that was him being cheap about it, like it was a low bar. I shook my head. It's not a low bar. It's the only bar. That's the thing I know now. Trent's the boy's father, and he's got 35 minutes of road. I'm nobody, and I've got a stool. I turned to her. I'm not going to promise you I'll always be here, because promises are cheap, and a lot of men have made you some. I'm just going to open the door at 7 tomorrow, and then again the day after. She looked at me for a long time. You've been open at 7 for 4 months, she said. Yeah, I said. I have. That's when it stopped being about Charlie. I'm going to be honest with you about the year that followed, because I don't want to sell you something that isn't real. It was slow. It was awkward. We were both scared out of our minds. Claire had been left. I'd been left. Neither one of us was going to move fast, and neither one of us was going to move at all, as long as Charlie was standing in the middle of it. Because a kid's not a reason to get together, and a kid's not a thing you gamble with. So we did it stupid, and careful, and backward. Coffee. Just coffee. For weeks. Then dinner after Charlie went to bed, with her sister sitting in the living room. Then a movie in an actual theater like teenagers. There was one night that broke it open. March. Sleeting. Charlie had strep, and Claire had been up 2 nights straight, and she called me at 10 at night. Not to ask for anything. She'd never ask for anything. Just to hear a voice. I drove over with soup from the diner, and a bag of the orange popsicles her kid liked. She opened the door, and she looked wrecked. Hair everywhere. Same sweatshirt as 2 days before. She said, "You didn't have to do that." I said, "I know." And she just went. Right there in the doorway. Stood in her own house and cried, like a person who hasn't been allowed to in 4 years. I didn't say it was going to be okay. I don't do that. I stood there and let it be as big as it was. When she got it back, She wiped her face and laughed at herself and said, "God, sorry, I'm a lot." "You're not a lot," I said. "Dean, I'm a single mom with a sick kid and no money, and an ex who, I'm objectively a lot." And I said, "Claire, I own a hardware store in a town of 4,000 people. I've been alone for 3 years. A doctor told me I'd never have a family." I set the soup on her counter. "You think you're a lot?" "I'm not a little, I'm just quiet about it." She stared at me. "I'm not here because you're easy," I said. "I'm here because it's 10 o'clock and you called." That was the first night I kissed her. In a kitchen, at 10:30 at night, both of us exhausted. Kid coughing down the hall, sleet coming down outside. Zero romance, zero candles. Best 30 seconds of my life to that point. And she pulled back and put her forehead on my chest and said, "Real quiet, I'm so scared of this." "Yeah," I said. "Me too. Don't be somebody who leaves." "Claire," I said, "I've never left anywhere in my life. That's my whole personality. It's actually a documented flaw." She laughed into my shirt. Wet, awful, beautiful laugh. And somewhere in there, I stopped being the guy from the store and started being the guy she called first. Which brings me to answer number 3. It was about a year later. Charlie was 7. We were in my kitchen. Claire, me, kid at the table doing homework, and Claire and I were doing dishes and not touching, but standing close enough that we both knew we were standing close enough. And Charlie said, out of nowhere, not looking up, "Mom, when are you gonna marry Dean?" Claire dropped a plate in the sink. She sat down at that table, and she did the thing she'd been dreading for a year and a half. She told him, all of it, gently, that Dean was her friend and he was wonderful, but he wasn't his dad. That his dad was Trent. That she was sorry, so sorry, that she'd let him tell his class something that wasn't true, and that it was her fault, not his. She was crying, trying not to, doing that thing where you keep your voice steady and your face is a disaster. And Charlie Bennett looked at his mother like she was the dumbest adult he'd ever met. He said, "I know. Trent's my dad." Claire stopped. "I know," Charlie said. "I'm not a baby." She said, "Then honey, why did you tell everybody at school that?" And he said it. 7 years old. Total disgust that he had to explain this. "Because you can pick." Claire said, "Charlie, you can't pick a dad." And that kid looked right at me, across the kitchen, with a pencil in his hand. He said, "Why not? He picked me first." I had to leave the room. I stood in my own hallway with my hand over my mouth, like I was hiding from somebody, and my whole life reorganized itself around one sentence out of a 7-year-old. He hadn't been lying to his class. Not once, not ever. He'd been choosing, out loud, every day for months, to anybody who'd listen. He'd looked at a man who had nothing and no one, who'd been told he'd never be a father, who just opened a door at 7 every morning, and a 6-year-old boy had walked in, sat down on a stool, and picked him. Third answer, and it didn't come from Claire at all. Claire and I got married the next fall. Backyard, 40 people. Her sister cried through the whole thing. Charlie was my best man. 8 years old in a clip-on tie, dead serious about it. Took the job more seriously than I took mine. The adoption went through the following spring. Trent signed. Didn't fight it. Didn't come to the hearing. I'd like to tell you I feel nothing about that man, but I actually feel a lot. Mostly that he threw away the only thing I ever wanted, and he doesn't even know what it cost him. Charlie's 12 now. He works in the store on Saturdays. Actual employee, actual paycheck, and he's a lazy sorter, and I'm going to fire him one of these days. Oh, one more thing. Morning of the wedding, he came into my room and handed me something he'd made in the machine in the back. Punched it out himself. Got the letters crooked. It said Dean, Dad. I still wear it. Every day. In the store. It's on my shirt right now. Anybody who comes in asks about it. I tell them my assistant manager made it. Here's what I've got. She came down my paint aisle and asked me to be a father for one day, and I told her she had to tell me why. The first why was a school breakfast, sweet and true, and nowhere close to the real thing. The second why was that a boy had been describing me to his class since October and calling it his dad. Truer. Still not it. But the real one, the actual one, was this. My father told me the whole job was showing up. Same place, same hours. Every day, so that when somebody needs somebody, they know where to find one. And I thought that made me small. A guy in a building who never went anywhere, who couldn't give a woman the one thing she wanted, who got left. I had it backward for 34 years. Trent Bennett could have made a son. He did make one. That's not the hard part. Biology's easy. Half the world can do it. The hard part is being there. At 3:15, every day, with a stool and a jar of screws, and no reason and nothing in it for you. A doctor told me I'd never be a father. He was right about the only thing he actually knew, and dead wrong about everything that matters. Because a 6-year-old kid walked into my store looking for somewhere to sit, and looked around at the whole world of men who could have been his, and picked the one who'd never left. She asked me to be his father for one day. He'd already decided I was, back in October. I was just the last one to find out. If somebody ever picked you, a kid, a stranger, anybody, at a point in your life when you'd decided you weren't worth picking, I want to hear about it. Tell me down in the comments, and tell me where in the world you're watching from tonight. I read every single one, and it gets me every time, seeing how far these stories travel. Somebody wrote in last week from a night shift, said they read the comments on their break, just to feel like somebody was around. If that's you tonight, I'm glad you're here. And be straight with me before you go. If a woman you barely knew had asked you that in your own store, would you have said yes like I did? Or would you have said no and gone home, and never once known what you turned down? There's no wrong answer. There's just the one you'd have to sit with. If this one got you, do me a small favor. Tap that like button so it finds the next person who needs it. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because I'm here every single week with a brand new story about the kind of family that doesn't show up the way you planned it. Open the door at 7. That's all any of us can do.